Welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Seaman, and I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And tonight, as we've been informed, we're doing two incredibly depressing topics. Actually, no, one's not a topic. We're doing one incredibly depressing thing and a depressing topic.
I see.
So be prepared out there. Get your,
tissues ready.
Well, I was going to say, never mind. Nooses.
Nooses? I beg your pardon.
Move on. Get prepared, because we're going to talk tonight about marriage. We did a show a long time ago about marriage, and it was pretty funny actually. But we're going to talk tonight about marriage a little bit. But we're also going to. It's also tonight is poetry night. Because we haven't had one in a while.
All right.
And so in the impromptu nature of the soul of the everyman, we've prepared for 20 minutes, and now we're ready to launch. We are well tonight. Prepared. We've spent days researching this topic. Decades. Anyway, so tonight's poet is one of our favorites, Khalil Gibran. And Khalil, if you're not familiar with his work, I always say this, but I would recommend highly that you look him up and read some of his poetry, because it's deep and it's soul wrenching and it's beautifully written. And this poem, of course, is equally good as any of his others. So the topic of tonight's poem actually is marriage. But I believe it's a beautiful, a really interesting take on it from the point of view of how most people's idea of a marriage is not what Khalil's talking about here. So without further ado, shall we just launch in here? Do you want to read the first stanza?
Oh, you want to do it that way?
Well, I think it's nice to give people a flow of the poem, and then we go back over, because So, stanza 1.
All right. I was going to say it's better to hear the whole thing.
Let's do the whole thing, even better, and then we'll go back over stanza 1.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So, without further ado, let's go for it.
All right. You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Aye, you shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts, and stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Khalil Gibran.
and beautiful as always. And you know, if we just when I read through this the first time, and I know you also, it really evokes a something that we've talked about many times in the Soul of Everyman, is that in marriage, in relationship, you're not looking for another to complete you, or you're not looking in relationship to fix the other one, or that this one will make up for what I lack, and so on and so on. What he's talking about is a marriage, a relationship of equals, where a whole one enters into a free relationship with another whole one, not a fragment, as we've said many times, to a fragment, looking for its other half or its other part. And then with these two whole beings in relationship, I love this one line, I'll just jump to the middle. Let the relationship, the relationship, rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. You each have your own soul. You're each your own being. But that relationship connects you, and it's not a static tether. It's a beautiful, moving energy field, you know, an ocean, an energy field, that you can feel the tides of the other. You can feel their warmth. You can feel their presence. But you're not parasitically bound to one another. Mm-hmm. So this was just such an incredible, beautiful. I'm jealous of how beautiful that wording is. Let it be rather a moving sea between the shores of your souls. How perfect a way to say it.
Well, he's speaking of love. Mm. Love being the moving sea between the shores of your soul. In other words, understanding that love is vast, and the communication between one shore to the other is through the expressions of love. And the different, hesitate to say the word moods, but the different rhythms and
the way the sea is. The sea is so different day to day.
Yes, it's never the same one day to another, and maybe that's the point, to understand that the relationship that you have should also be the same. It is different at any given moment. It's not a habit or this is what we do on Wednesday or Friday, or
it's not by rote.
You're living, because everything in the poem bespeaks of living.
Yes.
Right at that moment. And understanding that the relationship allows for the growth, and you have to make room for growth. As he was saying, the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. So you are not planted together so that one is taking the light that was intended for the other. By accident, perhaps, because of placement, but allowing for the full expression of what was in the seed of each one, and let it come to fullness. And in that, to allow the flow and the communication of light and water and breath to come and go.
You know, you just said something beautifully poetic there. The seed of each one. And you know, oaks and cypress are two trees, very, very different. Yet within the seed of the oak tree, within the acorn, is the whole oak. We've heard that expression before. And similarly, with the cypress, they both are massive, beautiful trees. But if you put them right next to each other, one will stunt the other. Neither one will reach what was in their seed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if you give them space, if you give each other space to grow, as you just said again, very, very beautifully and poetically, those two trees will come to their full potential, their full being, and yet still be in relationship to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I was going to remark upon, when you said the moving sea, love being the moving sea, love as a sea, like all seas, there are storms.
Mm-hmm.
There are tremendous challenges. Every day in a love relationship is not a sunny, beautiful, cloudless day.
Happy, joy, joy.
Happy, joy, Ren and Stimpy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yet in relationship, in love, it's not as Khalil says in the line before, it's not a bond of love, but it is a boundless sea. He says the shores, but you could even see as the ships of your souls upon a boundless sea. Your being and the love between your being and another doesn't in any way compromise the love you might have between yourself and yet another. You can love boundlessly between a husband and wife, and boundlessly between a parent and a child, and boundlessly between yourself and others in different ways, because love itself is, as you said, vast. Mm-hmm. Our beings are vast also, but in relationship, there's infinities of infinities. You grow vaster, if you will. You also reach a different potential in relationship than you could under any circumstances without that relationship. You're still a full being, but the relationship itself gives you a incredible breadth of new experience that you wouldn't have with that other being in your life, in your, in the sea of the relationship. So it's really very evocative.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe, or at least my interpretation of this is he's using the shores of your soul to allow you to understand that there is a boundary around you as an individual. Boats, yes, you can see, boats on the sea, but when it's on a shore, it's understanding that you're established in a spot.
Grounded.
And you understand that. And you are investigating what love does to your boundaries. What does it do? How do you interact when the love comes in and the love goes out? How do you change? How do you adapt? More than anything, I feel that Khalil Gibran understands process and understands how to express in a manner that allows for a process, which is something I'd say most people have a tendency to sort of look at a situation and it becomes a static thing.
A picture.
Yes. It's like a snapshot that they just refer back to, saying, oh, it's supposed to be this way. Yeah. And how many do we know that have done that for thinking of a relationship? Oh, a relationship's supposed to be this particular way. And they have their snapshot. And it's usually happy, some sort of brand of happy, or satisfying some checkboxes in some way.
Checkboxes.
For women always have checkboxes. So when that unfolds, or when that happens, it does not necessarily have room for growth.
Yeah.
It's as I said, a static thing. It's like the difference between plastic flowers and flowers that are growing in a pot.
Yeah, or as you just said, the a snapshot, and it's something happy, and then they refer to that and look at the dynamic process of their lives and say, oh, I'm not happy because it's not the snapshot anymore.
Right.
And that's the same thing when people say, well, my relationship is with this younger, more toned, less fat version of you or me, or the whole thing is this. This was when we were happy, and it's all a fantasy, and then every other thing is referred back to that, and it's not that, and especially if that snapshot wasn't even a snapshot, but it was an idealized, never to be actually experienced. This is the perfect man. This is the perfect woman. This is the perfect relationship. And you can never be happy. And as you said, Gibran understands process. Mm-hmm. And he knows that the relationship that you enter into is a relationship which will change you. You mentioned shores. The sea carves the shore. Mm-hmm. The sea changes it every time as the tide comes in and the tide goes out. It leaves behind things. It takes away things. It changes the shoreline constantly. And your boundaries in love are no longer fixed. In fact, they're very variable, very, very, very mutable when love comes into your being. And you have to allow that too.
Yes. Well, usually the love relationship is the first time when a soul actually understands that this is a relationship that is outside of what I've normally experienced, like parent and child or friend to friend.
Yeah, yeah.
The love relationship allows for an opening of the heart and a yearning to almost absorb one another. I have no other way to explain that. But this exchange of energies, some people think of it in terms of, well, I've got so many holes, maybe this other person's going to fill me. Mm. And that's a very small definition, if you would, of who you are and who you feel you are loving. To have a relationship where you are actually standing at the vastness of love and allowing that byplay to come and to go, you must have an established, rooted and grounded existence to be able to withstand the flow, the ebb and the flow of what love does to you in this lifetime.
True.
And it's not all, like, oh, this will make me happy, this will make me happy. It's like, no, you have to understand. It is a process where you wind up finding out that your boundaries are not enough to handle the flow that's coming in. You haven't prepared yourself. You've made static boundaries. And in other words, you made a
sandcastle.
Right. You made a moat for your sandcastle.
On the shores of love.
Right.
Oh, I like this one. I like where this is going. I like it.
And it's a process. Ebb and flow, the high tide and the low tide. It all is part of the experience of what this world is. And this is what you have come to experience, not a static viewpoint, not a concept that you think, well, I got this, I know how this is supposed to go. And then you enter into the timeline, the life, the flow that life actually is. And reality should set in.
Well, and it does. I wanted to go back just a couple phrases back when you were talking You mentioned, that people look at love as filling holes, but, Gibran also brings in sort of this aspect: fill each other's cup. In other words, fill each other with your love, with your relationship, but drink not from one cup. In other words, you come to a relationship with your boundaries, with your shore. You come to it as a grounded being, a whole person. You come to it with some holes. Of course, we all do. We are whole, but we also have, we are not perfected beings. So in relationship, you find a resonance, which is also wonderful, because the waves in an ocean is also a bit of a resonance. You find a resonance, and you fill the other with your presence, with your love, with the relationship, with what you bring. You're bringing something to the relationship, and you're also receiving something that is, again, not static. There's a flow that is established, and it fills you. It fills your cup, your being, with the essence of the other, with this love. But drink from that cup. Don't say, here's one cup and we'll both fill up half the cup and then we'll drink it together. Because again, this is so static. And certainly there's the symbolism of the cup, and sometimes is used in marriage ceremonies. You share a cup. A cup symbolizes, sustenance. It symbolizes a very, very intimate relationship between two beings. We drink from the same cup, but Gibran says, no, fill each your own cup with the essence of the other, and then drink from it. And you drink, you absorb, as you mentioned before, you absorb some of the energy of the other, but you give back in a relationship. As it's not that it has to be so desperately balanced. Here's one for you, one for me, but it becomes a balance where one day, at one time in this particular relationship, one gives far more than the other, because at that moment that's what the relationship requires. But it doesn't do anything if the relationship itself, the shores, the tide flows in one direction, then it flows back. It is not a taking and a never giving, but it may be for a period of time a great giving from one to the other, because of that's what is needed, necessary, required at the moment. Yet you feel the balance, the gratitude of the other for that sharing of energy, the desire to flow back and forth, the gratitude you get from being able to help the other for whatever reason. So we have our own beings, we have our own cups, as he says in the next line. Give one another of your bread, your body, your sustenance. This is also very Christian Catholic imagery. He was Christian. I think he might have been Catholic, but regardless, the bread and the blood and the bread, the body and the blood, or the bread and the wine here are also.
The imagery is almost universal, but yeah. I thought he was Muslim.
He could be Muslim too. All those things. Anyway, I think he was. I don't know what he was, but regardless,
we would have to look it up.
I'm going to say though that this imagery of bread, yourself, the drink, fill each other's cup with your essence, with your spirit, with your energy, but drink from that cup. Drink from your own cup. Share the bread together, but eat not from the same loaf. This is beautiful imagery.
I interpret it in this manner, where understanding that the flow between you is the love, and it is almost liquid in the way it flows from one to the other. So when you fill a cup, you're filling the soul of the other with this love. But the love is coming from source. It's not a personal love in terms of just your energy. You are connected to the source that allows you to live. And in that, you share by what you take from Source, and you fill the other, and the other also takes from Source and fills you. It's the interpretation I got from, not from one cup, because personal life and energy is very limited. And many times you don't have enough to go around for each member of the family. So you have to go back to a source in order to fill up on the love. And that in that manner you can share.
Well, and I love that you brought in Source, because, if you look at it from the point of view of the universe, of which we are aspects in one way, we are emanations from Source. Our relationship is a relationship between these two emanations, but it's carried upon the energy, the vast energy of Source, and
of God.
Love of God.
Yeah,
but
God.
Love cannot be is like the medium through
Right.
which relationship happens. It is not something that you carry with you and you parcel out and that you run out of.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's what people think that love is.
Yes.
They think it's, I only
have so much love.
Right. I only have this bucket full of love. That's all I can share.
There's a song in that. Bucket full of love. That could be a charter. Anyway, going on, moving on. Yes.
Moving on.
Keep going.
But when you understand that you have a source of infinite love, and to embrace that, because frankly, to be in a marriage, you must bring who you are, absolutely.
Yes.
All of you.
All the warts, all the good, all the bad,
all
everything.
The good and all the bad, and
Yes.
you have had to come to some point of maturation, a wholeness, where you can function.
I mean, that the wedding vows in many, many cultures talk about exactly that. You bring all of you, and for better or worse, rich or poor, these are all just aspects of you that will all the change, all the things that change on a daily, if not hourly basis.
Well, you know what I've always thought was interesting, that in the wedding ceremonies that we've attended and you've heard, they go on about how wonderful the other person is and how the other person makes you feel.
Lies. Yes.
And they're refusing to touch on the traditional vows, which basically brings in the reality of you will grow old together.
Yes.
And eventually things will fall apart for you.
Till death do you part.
And it's not always going to be good.
No. And that's okay, because that's life.
Well, but my point being, that's sort of avoided. It's sidestepped. I'd rather concentrate on talking about how you make me feel.
Static.
And yes, in that moment. That's their snapshot.
Well, let's take this moment and this snapshot, and we'll go back to the studio. We'll have a couple of commercials breaks, and coming back on the other side, we'll talk more about marriage.
Batman Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, the Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
you, listeners, for tuning into the Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, EveryMan. And tonight we are still talking about marriage. Seems endless, doesn't it? I actually were talking about a beautiful poem written by a beautiful poet by the name of Khalil Gibran, who I did look up, by the way, during the break, and he was raised as a Christian, a Masonite Christian.
Okay, I was wrong.
But he was. They say he was also very much influenced by the environment he grew up in, which was also Islam, and he brings in both traditions, both Abrahamic traditions, by the way, into his writing and informs his life. So this imagery is very evocative of the Christian imagery, but again, it's also, the loaf, bread, and wine are universal, or sustenance universal. Let's go back though. Let's find another couple of pieces in here, because there's some other beautiful stuff in here. And what you mentioned, the last line of the poem about the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. In relationship, in a more toxic or more static relationship, you'll often find that one shades or shadows or overshadows the other, and this, in these types of relationships, neither person is able to reach their full potential. Oftentimes, you'll find in these types of relationships that it's codependent. That things like do this for me, or you have to make me happy, or why aren't you this, or why aren't you that, are running around in the relationship and stunting the growth of one to the other. In a true relationship, which is what he's talking about here, you stand together. The pillars of the temple. Well, that's beautiful too. The pillars of the temple hold up the structure. They are the strength. They are the upright stature of a temple is dependent upon the strength of its pillars. But if you put all the pillars right next to each other, the roof will fall down. The temple will not stand. Similarly, if you have a stand of trees and all of them are crowded together, and the saplings are stunted, and the trees interfere with each other's growth, and there's dead branches. All that's because they're not allowing each other, even though each one is trying to grow and to be. They're interfering with each other, as you said earlier, maybe by accident, maybe unintentionally, but the idea of this over closeness or
lack of space.
Yes, but also just this idea of looking for the other as something I can then latch onto and take from, because I need. This is a parasitic and a relationship which doesn't have enough space. When you come to the other, with clear eyes, you bring all of you, all of me, take all of you. That song is a beautiful way of saying this. You bring all of you, your faults and your failings and your strengths and your weaknesses, and you don't say, well, the other is going to make up for my faults and failings and fill in my weaknesses and just have, no. You say, here's all of me.
Right.
And in clear eyes, you see all of the other, and yet there's a relationship. There's a sympathetic resonance. As he also says, the strings of the lute. There's a song between you. There's a life between you.
No, it's true. That's true. And understanding that flow, that love, that sea, you yourself have to become quite vast in order to interact with it, but also understanding that you cannot encompass it all.
No.
Like the line where he says, give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping. For only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And that, I thought, was absolutely beautiful for that understanding that your heart is so vast, that only the hand of the divine itself would be able to contain your heart.
Well, and really, your heart is your connection to Source. It is the emanation of you as a being, and you are an aspect of God. You're an aspect of life. You can't give that to another. It's yours forever, and it's never given.
You can share life.
You can share.
And that is what the previous lines are pretty much talking about. This is how you share life. You share what you take in, and when you give out, you put it in the other's cup. You're not drinking from the same cup.
Right.
Or giving another of your bread, your sustenance. To understand that you're so, that who you are is so vast, that you yourself don't even understand where your own shoreline happens to be. And to understand it also changes in process. So to be alive is a marvelous thing. To be alive and to be able to share that love is the reason why we were all born down here. And there's so many aspects to it. I mean, we're speaking of marriage here, but love in general, any love relationship that you have where you are not, contained or bound by the love. It's got to be a certain way, and this is the only way we're going to have this relationship.
Right.
Allowing for process, allowing for growth, so that you can come to fullness.
Just as a parent, the love you have for your child, if you don't allow them to grow, if you don't allow them to change, in essence, to grow away from you, to become a completely independent person, and yet still have a relationship which changes. You see that a lot in parent-child relationships where they want it to only be one way.
Yes. I can't tell you how many times I've heard moms say to their children, "Oh, don't grow up.
Don't ever change."
Yeah. And I'm like,
And yet, our experience, both with Christopher and all of our children, has been that in letting them become the beings, the people that they are today, the relationship only grows. It's very different, as it should be, but the relationship grows. It becomes stronger. They become, people that you can be friends with. And it's not that I'm friends with my child. No, at a certain point, you cannot be, because they are too dependent and they're too different. But as you grow and the experiences become their experiences, life, their experiences of life echo your own at points, or you can relate. You can say, "Oh, now you're this, and I was that once."
You are there to mark the accomplishments or the failures. It's a milestone. If they've hit it, you note it, but they have to hit the milestone, not you.
Yes.
Hitting the milestone for them. This is part of the growth process.
But then even after, when they become adults and they have their own children, or they experience their own sorrows or their own joys,
right?
You can't say, "Well, that's my sorrow, my joy, or my children." No, these are all yours. They're yours and yours alone. But I can say, "How wonderful," or how, I feel, because I know in my own life, my own echo, my own emanation, I feel something similar. And the relationship, the love, allows us to communicate that at a very deep level. That's what you have. When you have love, you have the ability to communicate without words, without even gestures, just the presence of the other. You can feel them through that field of love, through that vastness of love, if you will. And, even though, as we've said all the way through, the spaces, we've kind of ignored the first stanza, but this idea of being born together in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and together you shall be forevermore, yet let there be spaces in your togetherness. And this is another beautiful, beautiful line. It just, the poetry just makes me jealous. And let the winds of the heavens dance between you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just, but there it is again, process as beings. We both feel that wind. We both feel that heaven's winds moving among us, as we feel the seas moving on our shores. And we can remark, the wind blows between us, and we can feel it lifting our souls, lifting our spirits. We can communicate to each other through this medium, but yet it has to be a space so that you are feeling the breeze I feel, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say, oh, the beautiful sky over here, or, oh, each one has their own universe of experience.
Yeah. You
that
have
you can
your
share,
experience, right?
but yet it's still yours, always
Mm-hmm.
yours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first 3 lines. You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. Now, think about that. Born together, and together you will be forevermore. Meaning, you've come together to form this incredible new life, new relationship in marriage, the vow, the sanctification, and then the life. And it means that this is not a moment that is ever forgotten. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Understanding that life that was born because you've given your heart to something far greater, and together you create a whole new life.
And written upon eternity in this regard.
Mm-hmm. You shall be together even in the silent memory of God.
Which is eternal.
Mm-hmm. So understanding that what you do out of love is written in a space for all eternity. But it must be written in this love. Because if you go back to your understanding or connection to what the ocean is, it is love. And anything that touches heart to heart with no boundaries, it's unconditional love. You're loving because that's what is. You are love in that moment. And those experiences are written forever and can never be lost or destroyed. They're very precious in the silent memory of God. Very precious.
And if you this is, again, we've spoken about this before in the Soul of the EveryMan. The relationship that you have with that other no longer is bound in time. It becomes trans time. The relationship that you form with the other, when it's two beings connected through the vastness of the sea of love, it completely disrespects time. Form changes. Eventually, you will die. They will die. Regardless, throughout your whole relationship, your body will change. Your health may fail. Your mind may go. Whatever it is, but But regardless of that, the relationship remains.
Mm-hmm.
You have a love relationship with people who have passed away years and years and years ago. You still have them, as you said and Christopher said. You have the mommy in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and you may go to heaven, but the relationship remains
Mm-hmm.
because it is no longer a physical relationship, has transcended the physical. It's no longer a relationship of temporalness. It's not a relationship in time or space. It is relationship in the infinite, or in the unknowable, or in the love, the vastness of love.
Mm-hmm.
It no longer, in true being to being relationships, you feel that they have escaped the bounds of time. They've escaped the bounds of your own existence. You know that this is no longer something which is like written down on a piece of paper or checklists or snapshots. You've made an immutable free will change in the universe, in you, and the universe in the other, and it now exists beyond you, or beyond the physical you, beyond the little I, and you can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
You know it on a level, and the poet here brings it out into words, beautiful, beautiful words, but you know it on a level without the words, that the relationship you have with this other being is still there. My father has been gone now for 20 years. I have a relationship with him. I always will. And I know that, that relationship is as alive today as it was, when he left us. We have a relationship with Christopher. We know it's still the same, or actually the relationship itself remains, but the terms, the conditions, all the other things that go around it change. That doesn't matter. The form changes, the physicality changes, the time changes, the space changes. None of it matters to the relationship. That's how you know you've entered into a trans-time, trans-temporality, true relationship of beings. Because all the other things fall away, the physicality, the form, none of all the things that people think make a relationship matter anymore. The car, the check boxes, that all goes. And then you know that this relationship is heart to heart. It is heart true. And it's beyond the universe of temporality.
I like to think of time as the canvas on which you can paint, you can draw, you can create upon.
Mm.
And once time is done, you get to look at what you've done. And
I think it exceeds time, though.
Well, it's a form. The form is left behind. And you begin to see your place in the canvas. Almost like, what is it, the Greeks, where you have the three fates?
Oh, yeah.
And they weave.
They weave.
And each thread is a human life that gets interwoven in the tapestry. Something along that lines.
Yeah, but I think in relationship, the thread, which is your temporal existence, stops mattering. In the Greeks, they had the one where your thread is woven in, it's spun, it's cut, and you're done. But that's not what matters in the real relationship anymore. I think they were trying to get close to it, and they saw that a person wasn't a static thing, that it was a thread. It was something which had a beginning, small, and an end, old and frail, that all those parts of you were connected. True. But I think that all that, even the whole thread, you get beyond, you get above. We talked about being above the tapestry, being outside the tapestry.
Well, you're seeing what was woven.
Right.
That's my point. It's a very different way of putting life together, if you would.
Well, it's like Tecumseh, the song of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and then standing above it and singing it, but you're bringing it into the eternity bank.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still you, the being, is bringing this thread. And then maybe you'll start another. Who knows?
Well, it's, again, in that tradition, you don't get to pick
No.
the color you happen to be for a thread. They pull the essence, one pulls the essence out, and then it gets spun into a thread, and then woven, and then one of the fates comes and determines the length. That's the way they do it.
That's the way they do it.
Mm-hmm.
But as emanations from Source, when we go back to Source, you can see your whole thread. You can
Right.
bring all this back to your eternity bank. Say, here's what I did. Here's what I, in relationship, here it is. But yet, vaster than all of that is your being.
Mm-hmm.
And then go back again, take another tip. Learn from that. Learn again. Dream the common dream once more. This poem brings all of that vastness, and shows that your being and your relationship need that. They're two. You can't stuff them into this small little box of dependency, and you all drink from one cup, and that stunts it. That takes away from you. It doesn't allow
Right.
you to have a real experience.
Well, it's safety is what I would call it, because you're familiar with what this one cup looks like and its shape and how much it can hold. And, it's
That's
just,
my cup.
Yeah.
Don't mess it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. But to allow for the process, I believe, is the whole gist of this. And we have come to the end of this process.
We have, but we're going to do this in wholeness and in relationship. We're going to say, yep, that's the end of it, and we will go on to the next one.
All right. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.